Hey there, and welcome back to Stoic Minds Health. I'm Dr. Sophia Carter, and today we're diving into something that affects virtually every man over 40, but almost nobody talks about openly. We're discussing the refractory period, that frustrating window of time after orgasm when getting another erection feels absolutely impossible, no matter how much you or your partner might want to continue. Now, what I'm about to share with you is a simple 60-second technique that can dramatically reduce your refractory period. This isn't about pharmaceutical interventions or complicated protocols. This is about understanding the physiology of what's happening in your body during the refractory period and using specific techniques to reset those systems faster than they would naturally recover on their own. Let's start by understanding exactly what's happening physiologically during the refractory period, because once you understand the mechanisms, the solutions become much more obvious. After ejaculation, your body goes through a complex series of hormonal and neurological changes. The primary player here is prolactin. Immediately following orgasm, your prolactin levels spike dramatically. Prolactin is the hormone that creates that sense of sexual satisfaction and completion. It's what makes you feel done, relaxed, maybe even sleepy. But prolactin also has a direct inhibitory effect on dopamine, which is one of the key neurotransmitters involved in sexual arousal and desire. When prolactin is high and dopamine is suppressed, achieving another erection becomes physiologically difficult, regardless of mental desire or physical stimulation. Your body is essentially in a recovery mode, and the normal mechanisms that create erections are temporarily shut down. In younger men, this refractory period might only last 15 to 30 minutes, but as men age, prolactin clearance slows down and the refractory period extends. For men over 50, it's not uncommon for the refractory period to last several hours or even a full day. The second factor is norepinephrine. After orgasm, norepinephrine levels increase, which activates your sympathetic nervous system. This is your fight or flight response. The sympathetic nervous system is directly antagonistic to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what you need dominant for arousal and erections. When you're in sympathetic dominance, blood flow is directed away from the genitals and toward your muscles and vital organs. Your body is primed for action and survival, not for reproduction. The third factor is the physical state of your erectile tissue itself. During erection and orgasm, the smooth muscle in your penis contracts forcefully. After ejaculation, this tissue needs time to relax and reset before it can contract again effectively. Additionally, the valves that trap blood in the penis during erection have been released, and those mechanisms need time to reset as well. Understanding these three systems gives us three specific intervention points: reducing prolactin levels faster, shifting from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance, and supporting the physical recovery of erectile tissue. The 60-second technique I'm about to teach you addresses all three simultaneously. Here's the technique. Immediately after ejaculation, within the first 60 seconds, you're going to perform what I call the vascular reset protocol. This involves three specific actions done in sequence, and the timing is crucial because you're intervening in these hormonal and neurological cascades while they're still forming before they become fully established. Step 1 is controlled breathing with specific timing. Immediately after orgasm, begin breathing in a very particular pattern. You're going to inhale deeply through your nose for a count of 4, hold that breath for a count of 7, and exhale completely through your mouth for a count of 8. This is called the 4-7-8 breathing pattern, and it's one of the most powerful techniques for activating your parasympathetic nervous system and shutting down the sympathetic response. Why does this work? When you extend your exhale longer than your inhale, you activate the vagus nerve, which is the main nerve of your parasympathetic system. The vagus nerve directly opposes the sympathetic fight or flight response. By activating it immediately after orgasm, you're preventing the establishment of prolonged sympathetic dominance that extends the refractory period. The hold at 7 seconds is also important because it creates a brief period of oxygen debt which triggers vasodilation, the widening of blood vessels. This counteracts the vasoconstriction that happens during sympathetic activation and helps maintain better blood flow to your pelvic region. Do this breathing pattern 3 complete cycles in a row. That takes about 45 seconds. This might feel awkward at first, especially when you'd rather just collapse or fall asleep, but the physiological benefits are substantial. You're essentially hijacking your autonomic nervous system and forcing a shift toward the state that's conducive to arousal rather than recovery. Step 2 happens during the last 15 seconds of your 60-second window. You're going to perform what's called PC muscle pulsing. The PC muscle, or puboxeus muscle, is the muscle you use to stop urine flow. It's part of your pelvic floor, and it plays a crucial role in erectile function. While still doing your controlled breathing, you're going to contract and release your PC muscle in rapid succession. Contract for 1 second, release for 1 second, and repeat 15 times. This rhythmic pulsing does several things. First, it increases blood flow to the pelvic region through the pumping action. Second, it helps clear metabolic waste products from the erectile tissue that accumulated during the previous erection and orgasm. Third, it provides neurological stimulation to the pudal nerve, which is the primary nerve controlling penile sensation and erectile function. This PC pulsing essentially wakes up the erectile machinery and primes it for another round, much faster than if you left it to recover passively. Think of it like doing a cool down and warm up cycle for your erectile tissue. You're actively managing the recovery rather than waiting for it to happen on its own. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. There are additional techniques you can add to this 60-second protocol to enhance its effectiveness even further. These are optional additions that some men find particularly helpful, especially if they're dealing with longer refractory periods. The first addition is cold exposure to specific areas. The scrotum is highly responsive to temperature, and cold exposure causes reflexive vasoconstriction, followed by reactive vasodilation. What this means is that when you apply cold, the blood vessels constrict temporarily, but then they dilate wider than they were originally when the cold is removed. This reactive vasodilation increases blood flow to the entire pelvic region. You can do this by keeping a cold, damp washcloth nearby and applying it to your scrotum for about 30 seconds after completing your 60-second protocol. The shock of the cold also provides a neurological reset that helps shift you out of the post-orgasmic recovery state and back toward a state where arousal is possible. Another powerful addition is targeted supplementation taken about 15 to 20 minutes before you anticipate sexual activity. There are specific compounds that affect the refractory period by modulating the neurochemical response to orgasm. Larginine is an amino acid that your body converts to nitric oxide, which is essential for achieving erections. Taking about 3 to 5 grams of larginine before sexual activity ensures you have abundant raw materials for nitric oxide production available for a second round. The timing is important because it takes about 15 to 30 minutes for larginine to be absorbed and converted to nitric oxide. Another compound worth considering is mucuna prurans extract, which is a natural source of L-dopa. L-dopa is a precursor to dopamine, and remember, dopamine is suppressed by the prolactin spike after orgasm. By having elevated L-dopa levels in your system, you can counteract the dopamine suppression more quickly. A typical dose is about 300 to 500 milligrams of a standardized extract, taken 20 to 30 minutes before sexual activity. Zinc is another important nutrient because it's directly involved in testosterone production and also plays a role in modulating prolactin levels. Taking about 30 to 50 milligrams of zinc a few hours before sexual activity can help minimize the prolactin Now, let's talk about physical positioning and what you do immediately after orgasm beyond the 60-second protocol. Many men collapse into a completely relaxed position after orgasm, often lying flat on their back. While this feels natural, it's actually not optimal for minimizing the refractory period. Instead, after completing your 60-second protocol, move into a position where your pelvis is slightly elevated. You can do this by sitting up with your back against a headboard and placing a pillow under your hips, or by lying on your side with a pillow between your knees. These positions promote better venous drainage from the pelvis, which helps clear the metabolic byproducts that accumulate during sexual activity. They also maintain better arterial inflow compared to lying completely flat. Staying physically engaged rather than becoming completely passive also helps. Light movement, like gentle stretching or even just standing up and walking around briefly, helps maintain circulation and prevents the complete shutdown of physical arousal systems. You're keeping the pilot light on, so to speak, rather than letting everything go completely cold. Another factor that significantly impacts the refractory period is hydration status. During sexual activity, you lose fluids through sweating, increased respiration, and the ejaculate itself. Even mild dehydration can impair erectile function because adequate blood volume is necessary for achieving erections. Having water available and drinking about 8 to 12 ounces immediately after orgasm helps maintain optimal blood volume and supports faster recovery. Let's discuss the role of continued sensory engagement. Many men completely disconnect from sensory input after orgasm, closing their eyes, becoming quiet, withdrawing attention, but maintaining some level of sensory engagement can help prevent the deep dive into the post-orgasmic recovery state that extends the refractory period. This doesn't mean you need to immediately start physical stimulation for another round, but maintaining physical contact with your partner, keeping your eyes open, engaging in conversation, staying present and aware rather than drifting into a semi-sleep state. All of these things help maintain neural activity in the arousal pathways even while physical arousal is temporarily diminished. There's also the psychological component of expectation and intention. If you mentally frame the end of orgasm as the complete end of sexual activity as the finish line, your body responds accordingly. All systems shut down because the activity is over. But if you maintain an intention and expectation that this is just an intermission, not the finale, your physiology responds differently. You maintain a higher baseline level of arousal and readiness. This isn't just mental gymnastics. Your thoughts and expectations directly influence your autonomic nervous system, your hormone release, and your physical state. The placebo effect demonstrates how powerful expectation can be in influencing physiological outcomes. By maintaining an expectation of continued activity rather than completion, you're priming your body to recover faster. Now, let's talk about training effects and how you can progressively shorten your refractory period over time through consistent practice. Just like you can train your cardiovascular system or your muscles, you can train your sexual response system. The refractory period is not a fixed biological constant. It's influenced by conditioning and practice. Men who regularly engage in the techniques I've described, who consistently do the 60-second protocol and the additional strategies, often find that their refractory periods become progressively shorter over weeks and months. This happens because you're repeatedly signaling to your body that rapid recovery is expected and needed. Your hormonal systems become more efficient at clearing prolactin. Your nervous system becomes better at shifting from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance. Your erectile tissue maintains better health and responsiveness. There's also a practice called edging that some men find helpful for reducing refractory periods. Edging involves bringing yourself close to orgasm but stopping stimulation before ejaculation, allowing arousal to decrease slightly, then building back up again. Practicing this regularly trains your sexual response system to maintain arousal through fluctuations and helps develop better voluntary control over the ejaculatory reflex. When you develop the ability to maintain high arousal without immediately ejaculating, you also develop the ability to recover arousal more quickly after ejaculation. The neural pathways become more robust and responsive. This doesn't happen overnight, but with consistent practice over weeks and months, many men notice significant improvements in their ability to achieve multiple erections in a single session. Let's discuss the role of testosterone in the refractory period. Testosterone levels directly influence sexual desire, erectile function, and recovery time. Men with optimal testosterone levels tend to have shorter refractory periods than men with low testosterone. If you're dealing with persistently long refractory periods, despite using these techniques, it's worth getting your testosterone levels checked. Optimizing testosterone through natural means, or if appropriate through medical intervention, can significantly impact your refractory period. Natural testosterone optimization includes ensuring adequate vitamin D levels, getting sufficient quality sleep, managing stress, maintaining healthy body composition, and consuming adequate dietary fats and proteins. These foundational factors support your body's ability to produce testosterone optimally. There's also an interesting relationship between prolactin and testosterone. High prolactin suppresses testosterone production, so anything that helps clear prolactin faster after orgasm not only shortens the refractory period directly, but also helps maintain healthier testosterone levels, which further supports sexual function. It's a beneficial cycle that reinforces itself. Now let's talk about the importance of pelvic floor health in general for sexual function and recovery. The pelvic floor muscles, including the PC muscle I mentioned earlier, play crucial roles in erectile function, ejaculatory control, and sexual recovery. Men with strong, healthy pelvic floors consistently report better erectile function and shorter refractory periods than men with weak or dysfunctional pelvic floors. Regular pelvic floor exercises, often called Kegel exercises, involve repeatedly contracting and relaxing the PC muscle. A typical routine might involve 10 repetitions of contracting for 5 seconds and relaxing for 5 seconds, done 3 times per day. Over time, this strengthens the muscles and improves their endurance and responsiveness. Advanced pelvic floor training includes what's called reverse Kegel, where you practice relaxing and lengthening the pelvic floor muscles rather than contracting them. This is important because tight, overactive pelvic floor muscles can actually impair erectile function and contribute to premature ejaculation. Learning to both strengthen and relax these muscles voluntarily gives you much better control over your sexual response. Let's also address the ejaculation itself and how modifying certain aspects of the ejaculatory experience can influence the subsequent refractory period. The intensity and duration of orgasm affects the magnitude of the hormonal and neurological responses that follow. A very intense, prolonged orgasm tends to produce a larger prolactin spike and more dramatic sympathetic activation, which means a longer refractory period. Some men find that by moderating the intensity of their first orgasm, perhaps by slightly reducing stimulation intensity as they approach climax, they can achieve orgasm while producing a less dramatic physiological response. This smaller response recovers more quickly, allowing for shorter refractory periods. This requires experimentation and practice to find the right balance between satisfying orgasm and manageable recovery time. There's also something called the squeeze technique that was originally developed for treating premature ejaculation, but it has applications for managing refractory periods as well. The technique involves firmly squeezing the head of the penis or the base of the penis just before ejaculation. This pressure can modulate the ejaculatory response, and some men find it helps reduce the subsequent refractory period, though the mechanism isn't fully understood. Now let's discuss how the second round differs physiologically from the first round and how you can optimize your approach to make the second erection more achievable. After completing your 60-second protocol and any additional techniques, don't immediately attempt aggressive stimulation aimed at achieving full erection. Your erectile tissue is still in a recovery phase, and pushing too hard too fast often backfires. Instead, focus on gradually rebuilding arousal through varied stimulation. Mental arousal through fantasy, visual stimulation, or engaging conversation with your partner helps rebuild the neurological component of arousal. Light teasing physical touch rather than intense direct genital stimulation helps gradually increase blood flow without demanding full erectile response immediately. Think of it like warming up for exercise. You don't go from sitting still to sprinting at full speed. You gradually increase intensity as your body adapts and warms up. The same principle applies to achieving a second erection. Gradual escalation of stimulation allows your erectile mechanisms to come back online progressively rather than demanding immediate full function. Many men find that the second erection feels different from the first. It might take longer to achieve full hardness, or the hardness might not be quite as firm initially. This is completely normal and doesn't indicate a problem. As arousal continues to build, the erection typically firms up to match or even exceed the quality of the first erection. Patience and continued arousal building are key. Let's talk about circulation enhancement techniques beyond what I've already
mentioned. Anything that increases blood flow to the pelvic region supports faster recovery and easier achievement of subsequent erections. One simple technique is pelvic rocking or hip circles. While sitting or standing, move your pelvis in slow circles or rock it forward and back. This movement activates the muscles in your pelvis and lower back, which increases blood flow to the region. Some men also find that light exercise between rounds can help reduce the refractory period. This might seem counterintuitive, but brief moderate activity like walking, doing some light stretching, or even doing a few push-ups or squats can stimulate circulation, shift hormonal balance, and provide a physical and mental reset that makes it easier to transition back into sexual arousal. The key is keeping the exercise brief and moderate in intensity. You don't want to exhaust yourself or trigger a major sympathetic response. You're looking for just enough activity to stimulate your system without depleting your energy reserves. Finally, let's discuss mindset and the mental approach to multiple rounds. Performance anxiety and pressure to perform can significantly extend the refractory period through their effects on your nervous system. If you're worried about whether you'll be able to get hard again, if you're monitoring yourself constantly, if you're concerned about disappointing your partner, all of this anxiety activates your sympathetic nervous system and works directly against the physiological state you need for arousal. Approaching the situation with a relaxed, playful attitude rather than pressure and expectation makes a significant difference. Framing it as, let's see what happens, rather than I need to get hard again right now, reduces the performance pressure. Staying present and focused on pleasure and connection, rather than on achieving a specific outcome, helps maintain the parasympathetic state that supports arousal. Communication with your partner is also crucial. If she understands that there might be a waiting period and she's relaxed about it, that removes pressure from you. If she's engaged in helping create the right conditions through conversation, touch, and presence rather than expecting immediate results, the recovery period often shortens naturally. All of these techniques work synergistically. The 60-second protocol provides the physiological foundation. The supplementation supports the biochemical pathways. The physical positioning and movement enhance circulation. The mental approach reduces interference from anxiety and pressure. When you combine multiple approaches, the cumulative effect is far greater than any single technique alone. Thanks for watching today. If you found this valuable, please subscribe to Senior Men's Health for more evidence-based content about optimizing your sexual health and vitality. Until next time, this is Dr. Sophia Carter, reminding you that sexual function is trainable, and with the right techniques and consistent practice, significant improvements are absolutely possible.